Hello and welcome to episode 69 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. It is Tuesday, January 31st, 2017. Duke had a much nicer week than they did last week. So they went on the road and beat Notre Dame and beat Wake Forest. And we're here to tell you about it. So I'm your host this week, Sam Klein. I am joined as always by my colleagues in Atlanta, Jason Evans.
Hey there. We're gonna talk about both these games separately because to me they're two very, very different games. And also, you said we had a slightly better week. I mean, this is a sea change. A week in which you have two ACC road wins, one of which is against a ranked team, is like unbelievable.
Yeah, I was obviously understating for some sort
dramatic
of
purposes. Yes,
sure.
Yes.
Exactly. And then our other co-host this week is Donald Wine in Washington, D.C.
Good morning, guys. We're recording this very early in the morning for us on the East Coast and very, very, very early for Sam.
It's only 5 o'clock. I will be fine. So let's get into it. As Jason mentioned, we're going to do these one at a time. So we'll start with Wake Forest. In this game, Duke was down by a lot at halftime and came back and won, slowly chipped away at the lead and really managed to hold on at the end, especially highlighted by a Luke Kennard three-pointer. I'll start with Donald. Give me your impressions from the Wake Forest game.
Well, I mean, like you said, we started out, I thought we played terribly in the first half, and we didn't really find a rhythm until about 10 minutes left in the game. And it's kind of weird. Like, I'm looking at the stats, and it shows that we went 63% from the floor in the second half. And I think it's more of a case of we win about 20% for the first 10 minutes of the second half. And then, like you said, slowly but surely we kept chipping away. But that's because we just started hitting everything when we came down the court. It felt like we went about 80% the rest of the way. But I think that this game showed a lot of heart. You know, when some of these teams, this team, especially this team, early in the season, we're down 7 with like 2 minutes left. We're not winning that ball game. And somehow we just kept staying composed, staying within ourselves. We happened to have Luke Kennard be on fire. He went for 34 points. He was 11 for 14 from the floor, 6 for 10 from the 3-point line, and I'm sorry, 6 for 6 from the 3-point line, and 6 for 10
and 10 for 10 in the second half.
Yeah, it's just
perfect in the second half.
It's incredible how amazing he was, but like just that fed the rest of the team. Even if we didn't hit a basket, we got a key stop on the other end. Everyone kind of contributed to this, and I think this was one of those victories that you see as kind of a momentum builder, especially that last 2 minutes where now this team gets a taste of being down, backs against the wall, and coming back from the brink and winning. So I think that is a good thing to take away from this game. Hopefully we leave that first half way back in the past, but I think we really showed a lot of mettle and a lot of heart down the stretch.
What would you think if those halves were reversed?
That's a good question. I think it would end up more like the NC State game where, we started out kind of good, and then we had a nice lead, and then the rail fell off. And I think if the rail fell off, we're probably sitting here thinking, oh no, what has happened to our team? There's something terribly wrong with how we play in the second half. But I'm glad the roles were reversed this time around.
Right. Jason, your take on Wake?
I mean, we played poorly for at least 35 minutes, and then we found a way to win. And though it's weird and strange to say this about a game in which you mostly played poorly, that's actually the hallmark of a good team. When you don't play well and yet you still find yourself in it, enough to be able to suddenly play well for a small stretch and win it, that's actually a pretty good sign. I mean, we were, as Donald said, we were down 7 points with 2 minutes left. I thought we were going to lose, and I thought a loss to Wake on the road was pretty much going to doom our season. Now, I'm not saying we were going to miss the NCAA tournament, but I really think the final 2 minutes when Kennard hit a three, and then Allen hit a three, and then Kennard hit the three that won it, changes the complexion of the season around really dramatically. We committed way too many fouls. We almost threw away the season with the number of fouls we committed. But now it feels like we may be on our way to being really good again. I mean, how crazy was the game, but how crazy has this season been? And I want to back up really quick. To me, one of the turning points that began to get Duke ignited and playing well again was Brandon Childress, Randolph Childress's son, who was a idiot and went and grabbed Grayson Allen, got wrapped up with someone. There was a foul, and there was kind of a little, people sort of jawing off against each other by the Duke bench. And Brandon Childress went in and I don't want to say he tackled Grayson Allen, but he wrapped his arms around Grayson Allen and pulled Grayson Allen to the bench or to the ground. It was hard to see. Basically, this is what teams have been doing to Grayson Allen lately. They've been trying to punk him a lot. And Grayson just keeps on remaining really calm. It resulted in a technical foul against Wake. They gave Duke a couple free throws, but I think it woke the team up a little bit. I thought we played better after that moment than we did before it. Another key I saw to the game was I thought we rebounded really well against a fairly decent sized and athletic team in Wake Forest. We out-rebounded them 36-29. When we get to Notre Dame, I'll mention that we out-rebounded them by 12. We're turning into one of the better rebounding teams we've seen at Duke in a long time, because usually Duke is not a big rebounding team, and we do it in collective bunches. So we had a bunch of different guys rebound really nicely in this game. Grayson Allen led the team with 6 rebounds. It's not like someone came out and had 10, 12, 14. Grayson had 6. Jayson Tatum had 5 rebounds in 21 minutes, and as we'll see when we discuss Notre Dame, he's turning into a rebounding freak. And Harry Giles had 5 rebounds in 18 minutes, and I thought the Wake game to me was Giles beginning to show a little more of what made him the number 1 high school player in the country. He's an athletic freak. His skill level, his instincts are still really rusty, but he's starting to realize, hey, I can just be a crazy athletic freak out here, and it'll really work for me. And I thought Duke actually passed the ball fairly well in this game. We had 18 assists, which is a good number. 18 assists on 28 made baskets, which is pretty nice. And we had 4 different guys with more than 3 assists. So the Wake game was just, like I said, it was one of these games where we didn't play very well, and we still managed to find a win. And an ACC road win, those are precious, precious commodities. And to do it right after taking an ACC home loss to friggin' NC State, ugh, I'm still disgusted at that. It was a big deal. It was a really big deal. And I think, Sam, if you got a little more to add, but
I was going to ask you a follow-up question about one of the things you said, which is about the rebounding and how it's more spread around than it was earlier in the season. And I remember particularly when all the freshmen were still hurt, we were talking about how Emil Jefferson was averaging a double-double, and he was the man inside. And yeah, we know that Grayson Allen's a good rebounder. We know that Matt Jones is opportunistic and can get a few himself. Do you prefer? Well, I guess there's kind of 2 things here. One, what's leading to there being more, equality in the rebounding? Is it the defense? Is there some style of play, or is it just the evening out? And then the second question being, which of those do you prefer? Do you want the guards getting as many rebounds as they do, or would you rather it be the big men?
Well, I don't mind. I like the guards getting. Yeah, sorry. I like the guards getting rebounds, because I think that especially when a guard gets a rebound, either he's fighting inside for it, or maybe it's a long rebound that he corrals on, by hustling a little bit more than everyone else. So guard rebounds, I'm perfectly fine with them. As for the equanimity across the entire team, you're right. We're not seeing Emil Jefferson put up double-doubles anymore. I'd love for him to, because Emil's a fabulous 5th-year senior and has that kind of ability and that kind of talent. Look, Emil carried us the first 4 or 5 minutes of the Notre Dame game, and helped us build an early lead against Notre Dame. But for Duke to be the team that everyone expected in the preseason, which is the team that everyone expects to win the national title, I love Emil Jefferson, but for Duke to become that team, probably Jayson Tatum and Harry Giles need to be, 2 of the 5 best players on the floor. For most of the season, they have not been. It's only occasional flashes that we've gotten from Tatum. And as much as I love Emile Jefferson, Duke's potential is higher when Emile Jefferson is taking a smaller role. Now, he still needs to take a huge role as the defensive captain, essentially. He still needs to play major minutes. We're not talking about minutes, but we're talking about sort of, what kind of things are they producing for the team? And when Jayson Tatum and Harry Giles are filling up the stat book, I think Duke is probably better off than when Emile Jefferson is, because I think Jefferson's going to provide things for you whether he gets stats or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think I agree with your take there. That's why I kind of wanted to hear somebody else say it.
Let me jump in and say one more thing about the long rebounds. I think when you have guards getting a lot of rebounds, what that signifies is two things. One, you're forcing the other team to take bad jump shots, and I think that was something that we did, especially in the second half. The second thing that means is you have great perimeter defense, and that is a key because when you're playing basketball and you're a guard, you're taught to. There's a drill that you basically get everybody to box out, and if the ball hits the floor, then the defensive team wins, no matter who gets the rebound. And I think a lot of times what that means is you're forcing a lot of bad jump shots, which is leading to a lot of long rebounds, and these guards are sealing out their man correctly and getting to the ball. And I think that is what has been key, especially in these little spurts when you saw it against Miami a lot when they were missing some bunnies and there'd be shots tipped out, but our guys were sealing the players off on the perimeter. This time around, these were a lot of jump shots that they were missing, and we were getting the rebounds and being active to the ball. And I think that is what you want to see from a defensive team.
Yeah, and the activity is right.
If you say bad jump shots, that should lead us to Notre Dame.
Let's talk about Notre Dame and talk about defense. So, Donald, tell me about Notre Dame and defense.
Well, Notre Dame is known for their defense, and I think they're a team that we said before last week that we need to play our best game against them, both offensively and defensively. I think we did that. I think it was one of those things.
Hey, Donald.
Yeah.
You said Notre Dame's known for their. You mean they're known for their offense?
They're known for their offense, but they're also known for being very tough on the ball. They're not necessarily going to, they're not Virginia in the terms of they're not allowing only 40, 50 points a game, but they are tough on defense when it comes to being on the ball and being in your face and basically making you make some bad decisions with the ball.
See, I wanted to talk about Duke's defense against Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's when I mentioned.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say when I mentioned bad jump shots, I was thinking of how the defensive performance we turned in against Notre Dame, who is a really, really good offensive team. And I don't mean to jump in and take over for you completely.
No, go ahead.
So let me ask this question. Did it strike you guys as much as it struck me how many times Notre Dame was shooting with the shot clock down to less than 7, 6, 5 seconds?
All the time.
It was unbelievable.
That was the best thing about this game was that Duke was forcing Notre Dame away from the middle. They were in the corners, they were on the wings, and they were passing the ball back and forth and not getting it inside. And
I couldn't even count. How many times they did that.
There was a point in the first half when we went on that 21-6 run. I guess it was 19 to 16 Notre Dame, and then we went on a 21-6 run to finish the half. There was a point where I think 3 possessions in a row. It wasn't even they waited until 4 or 5 seconds left in the shot clock to shoot, but they didn't do anything to kind of wear us down for those other 25 seconds. They just sat there with the ball at the top of the key, and a couple guys would make a couple quick runs, realize that they were taken, that the passing lanes were taken, and then they basically just held the ball until 7 seconds left and tried to do something on the fly. I thought that was brilliant defense, especially with our guards, because they were basically they didn't have to do anything for 25 seconds except be in the passing lanes a couple times, and it's almost like the Notre Dame gave up on those possessions.
So I think that this was first of all, there's no question this was the best game Duke has played all year. Are we in agreement?
Yes.
Raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
And to me, it's not really close. I mean, Ken Palm will tell you that our win over Florida Florida's up in the top 10 now on Ken Pom, and so Ken Pom would say that our win over Florida is more impressive than this. But I would disagree with the stats guru. I think a win at Notre Dame is really, really impressive. Clearly the best win this team has had. I also thought it was probably our best defensive game. We talked about how we forced them into bad shots, into shots with the shot clock going down. In the second half, Notre Dame did a nice job of hitting those shots. Notre Dame hit 57% from the field in the second half, and at one point they were hitting, and I don't mean 1 point like in the first 5 minutes, I mean like 10, 12 minutes in the half, they'd hit 75% of their shots in the second half. But they couldn't really make up any ground on us. And to me, this game defined something really, really important for Duke, and that is Jayson Tatum's potential for greatness. When Jayson Tatum is going toward the basket, when he's driving, he can take little pull-ups if he wants, but when he's taking the ball at the hoop, I think Jayson Tatum looks like a future NBA All-Star. But when Jayson Tatum fades away or takes a contest...
Even when he's getting swiped in the face.
You're right. I'm going to get to that in a second. But I was making this beautiful analogy, man. Dude, you interrupted it. When he's going toward the basket, he's a future NBA All-Star. When he is fading away or taking a contested jumper, he's a not very good college player, or Donald said to me, he's still a high school player. And that's a huge difference. And this game, boy, did he take the ball at the basket. Really impressively. And you mentioned him getting slapped in the face in that one play. Can I ask you guys, this was a terrible game by the officials. Tatum was slapped in the face by Bonzi Colson on a layup. I mean, slapped in the face. Tatum clearly charged that they called it a block. And on that play, he went down, and I was convinced he was injured. He's on the ground for like 5 minutes. He was holding his leg. I'm like, oh, wait, this is going to be an ACL, an MCL, a PCL, FCL, BCL, some kind of CL.
Had, like, broken his hand.
I couldn't tell what it was.
That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, then he comes back in the game a couple minutes later. I'm like, whoa, how did that happen?
He's playing normally.
Yeah, there was also a couple of continuation calls on both ends that weren't called, like basically within possession of each other. Like I think Mike Bray got a technical because I mean the dude was fouled, and like when he was fouled, the ball was on the glass, and they called that on the floor. And then the very next possession, we went down, and Luke Kennard did the same thing, got called and got a foul call, drew a foul call, but they called that one on the floor, and that one was basically in the hoop already by the time the whistle blew. So
and I thought neither team could get much rhythm because of the officials who just kept on calling fouls. There were a crazy number of free throws. And by the way, in the preview all season long, I've talked about Notre Dame is the greatest free throw shooting team maybe in ACC history, that they hit almost 85% of their free throws in the season. And this game, they only hit 68%, which isn't terrible, but was 23 of 24, 96% at the free throw line. Now, it is worth noting, if you want to say, hey, Duke only won because they shot incredible from the free throw line, if we'd hit 70%, which is still a very, very reasonable number, it only reduces our point total by 6 points. So we still win the game by 4 points. But it definitely helped that Notre Dame hit a few less than they usually do, and Duke hit a few more than we usually do. I got a lot more, but Donald, let go for it. Give me something else.
I think the turning point of the game was in the second half. We were up, I think, 13 points. And Notre Dame went on a 12-0 run, and we did not give up the lead. We did not lose our composure. And basically, when they got to 12 points, we came down. I guess we called a timeout a couple plays before, and Grayson Allen hit a key three. And then he hit another I call a Cal Singler, one of those shots that like just inside the 3-point line with his foot on the line. And after that, it was just like, wow, we took their shot in the face, and we're still here. I think this is a good chance. So I think at that point, that was the turning point of the entire basketball game, where earlier in the season, earlier in the week, we would have lost that game. And somehow this team stayed composed. They even on the road, they really dug in and said, we can still win this ball game. And I think Grayson Allen taking the lead at that point, taking charge, hitting a couple key baskets, settled the team down, and the rest of the team took it from there. I think that was a key sequence in the ball game. I think it might be a key sequence going forward in the season.
Well, it's soul crushing. It really quick. It's soul crushing to make a run like that. If you're Notre Dame, 12 straight points. Duke's turning the ball over on most of those possessions, so Notre Dame's feeling better and better and better. And then suddenly Grayson hits a 3, and then he hits a 17-footer, and suddenly we're up by 6 again. And you're like, if you're Notre Dame, you're like, oh God, all this work. We were almost back in the game. We almost had the lead, and now we're at least 2 possessions down.
They had 1 or 2 opportunities to take the lead, right? They had the ball down once or twice and missed shots.
Once. They had one chance.
Yeah. I think it was Farrell that took a shot from outside and missed it. And then, anyway, the one thing I wanted to add but just to emphasize, because Jayson already mentioned it, was the free throws. There was a point early in the second half when both teams had a lot of fouls, and you could tell that this was headed for a free throw fest. And Jayson already mentioned how good Notre Dame is at shooting free throws. We've been kind of up and down. I think that you were probably, the bright spot was maybe that Giles wasn't going to play much down the stretch because he had a lot of fouls himself. So there weren't going to be a lot of opportunities for him to go to the line. But I was worried there early in the second half when I think both teams had like 5 or 6 fouls within the first 4 or 5 minutes, that we were just going to spend the whole game watching teams go back and forth on the free throw line. And Notre Dame, if you look at the way each of these team seasons has gone so far, Notre Dame is expected to win a game like that. But Duke managed to, stay calm at the line. The only free throw they missed was the one that Jefferson had to take for Tatum. So it was very impressive to see that. And, it's probably not sustainable to shoot 95% from the line. It isn't, but it shows that this team has a lot more composure than they showed the last couple of weeks in other road games where the crowd was affecting them and they were letting emotions get the best of them. Today it was very calm, and as we talked about, especially with Grayson Allen, with all the attention he's getting all through the game against Notre Dame, he was calm, and a foul would happen, whatever would happen, he would just turn around and walk away, and he was solid in this game. And I think that throughout the game he was kind of the steadying force for this team, and I was really impressed by that. Did you guys?
So we haven't even mentioned
the coolest play ever.
We haven't mentioned like one of the best plays, of the season, where Luke Kennard is falling, is chasing a rebound, a ball out of bounds. He grabs it, he like spins. Actually, he didn't spin. He sort of looked back with his head, and he throws the ball with his arm back in bounds between the legs of a Notre Dame player to a wide open Grayson Allen who buries a 3. It's one of the smartest, calmest plays I've ever seen a Duke player make. And you ready for the ultimate compliment? Someone, a friend of mine on an email said this. The ultimate compliment, he said the play was Battier-like. Which that's about the highest praise you can give to someone for a smart hustle play.
It reminded me of the block he had on Jason Gardner in the 2001 title game.
I mean, that's what Luke Kennard is starting to turn into. The other thing we haven't mentioned is the rebounding. Duke won the rebounding battle by 12, 38-26. Now, Notre Dame's not a great rebounding team. They're not a big team. In fact, they went really small most of the second half. But, hey, welcome to the show, Jayson Tatum, 14 rebounds, and he was going high and strong after the ball. He was rebounding really well before he started scoring really well, and I sort of feel like it fed for him that getting all the boards started to turn into something where he went, well, I'm going to start being aggressive inside on offense, and like I said, Jayson Tatum on the inside is a really, really good thing for Duke.
And we talked before the game about how Notre Dame plays a specific style. They don't play that many guys, so they can't really adjust. And Duke has a little bit more ability to, play the big guys more, play the small guys more. How is Duke going to match up with Notre Dame? And I think for the most part, we saw kind of the small lineup where Tatum's playing the 4, but you could see Duke's size advantage and Duke's interior advantage in that rebounding.
And by the way, when Tatum, you're right, Tatum, played the 4 almost the entire second half. When he got hurt and came out, do you guys notice who came in? No, Frank Jackson in the second half. Frank Jackson came in, and you want to talk about going small. Emil Jefferson was the only guy on the floor for Duke who was over 6'5" at that moment. That was literally 4 guards around one not that big and not run jump big man. Duke really went small, and the rebounding didn't fall off, which was huge. And then Tatum came back and continued to rebound like an absolute beast.
I did want to throw a little bit of cold water on your discussion of Luke Kennard's amazing play. I'm not convinced that he was trying to throw it to Allen as much as he was trying to throw it off the Notre Dame player, and the Notre Dame player was okay with the ball going through his legs. You and Dan Dockich are in agreement that Kennard was trying to pass that ball. I'm not sure about it. The other funny Dockich moment, and I should say that I enjoyed Dan Dockich's commentary more than I normally enjoy his commentary or any commentary on ESPN. There was another play where Allen airballed a little bunny, but it ended up in Harry Giles' hands, and that became his first 2 points of the game. And Dan Dockich said, wow, Allen really found Giles down low, and then on the replay, you could see that Allen clearly pulls up for the shot and then just misses it.
Although I'll tell you something about that play, which is as Allen is pulling up, on the replay, you could really see this. Harry Giles points up with his hand, like to say, put the ball up, because Harry Giles was in great position. And Giles was essentially saying, toss this thing up here because I got all the, and he did. There was almost not a rebound that was possible for anyone other than Harry Giles, just the positioning of where he was. There was no one else under the basket but him. And he had put his butt into the only other Notre Dame player who was in the vicinity because everyone was going toward Grayson Allen. So I agree with you. I haven't looked at I don't think they gave Grayson Allen an assist on that play. They probably called it a missed shot. But to me, whether he was shooting or passing, this was Grayson Allen putting the ball up because he knew that Harry Giles was going to get it no matter what happened.
Yeah, and that's probably true. I just don't want to give him the full credit for a pass. Anything else about Notre Dame, guys?
I got one really cool thing about the second half.
Really cool thing.
So
talk about Pittsburgh very briefly.
Yes. So I looked at the shot chart, and I looked at it because I'd noticed something during the second half. Duke took 5 3-point attempts. Look, you got to take 3-pointers. College basketball is largely about 3-pointers. Duke took 5 3-point attempts in the second half. We only hit one of them. It was the shot by Grayson when Notre Dame cut the lead to 1. Grayson also hit that straight-on 17-footer as the very next shot. And a little earlier in the second half, Luke Kennard had a baseline jumper from about 15. Other than our 3-pointers, Grayson's wide-open 17-footer, and Luke Kennard taking and making a 15-footer, every other Duke shot was taken in the lane, in the paint. 16 shots, every single one of them taken in the lane. I love that. This team is capable of passing and driving and creating in such a way that all of our shots are either wide open, a 3-pointer, or a shot in the lane. Not contested jump shots. And if you look at the shot chart on Notre Dame, it looks very, very different. And that's the reason Duke won by 10 points. We took shots that we were very likely to make, and Notre Dame took difficult shots.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm looking at the shot chart and seeing the same, and there's that great cluster for Duke that is in the paint and that nice spread around the outside and nothing in the middle. So, that's a great point. Let's talk about Pittsburgh really quickly. Duke's playing Pittsburgh this weekend in Durham. I'm actually going to be at the game. So if you see me, if you know who I am, say hi. But that's Duke's only game now for the next week and a half, or little over a week before playing UNC next Thursday. So what we'll do is we'll talk about Pittsburgh here really briefly, and then we'll preview. We'll do a show after Pittsburgh game and to preview UNC because obviously UNC is a big game. So I guess I'll just pass to both of you. I don't think either of you is specifically talking about Pittsburgh this week, but I'll start with Donald. What do you know about Pittsburgh? What have you seen from them? Is there anything that you think is a key to the game here for Duke?
Well, I think there are 2 guys that are getting points are Jamel Artis and Michael Young. They both average 20 points a game, which is astounding for college basketball. It's astounding for the ACC. It's astounding to have two of them on the same team. But what that shows is that their entire
both of those guys, aren't we?
What's that?
We're familiar with both of those guys, aren't we? Those guys aren't freshmen.
No, these guys have been around for a while, and but I think the catch is that they're the only two guys who are really getting buckets. So quick analysis is stop those two guys, you have a good chance to win the ball game because they're averaging 40. They're 77 points in ball games. So they rebound pretty well. I think Michael Young is one of their best rebounders. Artis is also getting rebounds as well, and they get a lot of assists. So they're moving the ball around. But in the end, if we get it down to the point where they're playing hero ball with these two guys, our perimeter defense should be able to shut them down and limit their chances, especially if we rebound the way we did against Notre Dame. That's going to be a really big key. And I think our bench needs to step up. Our bench hasn't stepped up in quite a while. I think they've played, some of our guys have played well at spurts, but I think if we want to wear this team down, we have a full week of rest. And I think now we can get these guys where they hurt, because I think they play in the middle of the week. I haven't double checked that, but I think the good thing is we'll have the bodies to run at them, especially on the interior, and do that, wear them down, and hopefully that'll be where we get a lot of our points, especially points in the paint.
Dude, not only do they play during the middle of the week, they play during the middle of the week at UNC. They've got this weird situation where they play at Carolina on Tuesday tonight. Those of you listening to the podcast, that game may have already happened. Depends on whether you grab the podcast the moment it comes out or whether you maybe listen to it the next day or something like that. But they play at UNC tonight. Then I guess they fly back to Pitt for a couple of days. Then they come back down to Durham. Essentially they've got 2 games in 4 days, 13 miles apart. And it's a tough road for this Pitt team. They have lost 6 in a row. And some of them have been, good, close losses, but they've gotten their butts kicked in some of the other games.
That Louisville game, they got smoked.
So they lost to Louisville a week ago, 106-51, 55 points. Louisville doubled them, 106-51, 55-point margin, by the way, the biggest blowout in a road game in ACC history, the largest margin of victory for a team on the road. They lost that game at home, 106-51. They lost it at home.
Also in that game, it was 51-18 at the half. Louisville, in the event of Louisville, obviously. If Louisville had not scored a single point in the second half, and Pitt had scored the points that they did, they would have just gone to overtime. Like, that's how far down they were.
Brutal. This Pitt team is unlike other recent Pitt teams. If I had to ask you what was the characteristic of Pitt in the past, they've been a grind it, really physical team that plays good defense. This Pitt team is much better on offense. They are much worse on defense than they have been lately. And it's showing in their scores. Everyone gets, mid 70s, 80s, 100+ points against them. They had a game earlier this year. They played Marshall and they won. The final score is 112-106. That's an NBA score. 112-106. Come on. They've given up a ton of points on the season, and playing in Cameron, Duke tends to score a little bit better in Cameron. This Pitt team, they're reeling. They're in a lot of trouble. A lot of people thought that they'd be one of the ACC teams that would probably or have a good chance to make the NCAAs. It doesn't look that way right now. They're 1-7 in the league. How shocking is it that their only win is against UVA? That's how crazy the ACC is this year.
And against UVA, they scored 18 points in an overtime period.
Yeah. They put up 88 on UVA. That's usually 2 opponents. UVA only gives up about 50 points a game, so that's like 2 opponents. It's crazy, and I think that this, going on the road to UNC and then on the road to Duke, I think that's going to be very, very difficult. Pitt's going to be looking, probably at 1-8, 1-9 after they play us. Jamel Artis is a heck of a player. This is a good team, they're certainly capable of beating Duke. Michael Young's a very good player. They're experienced players. They know what it takes to beat Duke. They've been around for a while, but I don't think they're not playing as a team very well. Like I said, they're not playing very good defense. I'd be very, very surprised. I'd be really surprised if they're able to figure out a way to beat the Blue Devils.
Right. Let's wrap up here real quick because I think we're all set on Pittsburgh. I would just add that I'm excited to be there and hopefully, as you guys say, see Duke get something of an easy victory. And as we're looking ahead, we also have to remember that we're right in the timeline now for when Coach K might be making his return. So maybe I'll get to see him this weekend, but I'm not holding my breath. Finish as usual with player of the week picks and parting shots. So I will start with Jayson. Jayson, give me your player of the week.
So I'm going to go with Grayson Allen. I think it'd be very easy to pick Luke Kennard, and I suspect that some of my other podcast teammates will go with Mr. Kennard. But I'm going to go with Grayson Allen because Luke Kennard gets to hit his huge game winner against Wake Forest because Grayson Allen hit a clutch 3 only moments earlier. When we already mentioned when Notre Dame came back and really made it a 1-point game, and you had to be really worried on the road whether Duke was going to be able to hold on. Grayson Allen was the guy who scored 5 points in 2 possessions and suddenly gave us a cushion again. He had 21 points against Notre Dame. He had 19 against Wake Forest. I thought his shot selection is better than it's been lately. I think he's rebounding better than he has been lately. And so I went with Grayson Allen as the guy and I'll tell you the other thing is in both those games there have been guys in pretty serious foul trouble, and Grayson Allen has been somewhat of a steadying influence for Duke when we needed it down the stretch to get 2 ACC road wins. Grayson Allen, my player of the week. Donald?
I'm actually going to go with Luke Kennard. 34 points against Wake Forest, 16 points against Notre Dame. The dude was on fire, and we really needed him, especially like you said down the stretch throughout the game against Wake Forest. But also his smart basketball play against Notre Dame was one of the reasons why we were able to hold off the Fighting Irish and win that game. So my player of the week, Luke Kennard.
So I was happy that I was hosting this week because I get to pick player of the week last. Because I had 3 guys who I thought you could have picked: Allen, Kennard, and then the guy who I'm going to take so that he gets his mention, which is Jayson Tatum.
Yeah, good call.
Not really as much for his play against Wake Forest, although he was fine, really against Notre Dame, where, as Jayson mentioned, he looks a lot more like an NBA player now than he has at any point in the season. He's going at the rim. He's making smarter decisions with the ball. He's not taking those contested jumpers from 18 feet that don't make any sense. He had a lot of shots that were from the interior. He was driving. He was getting offensive rebounds. He was passing the ball out when he realized he didn't have a shot. And then at the other end of the floor, he was playing much better defense. He wasn't going out to the perimeter and letting guys just take one step around him and then be at the hoop. He was using his size a little better. And I think it helps when he gets to play in the interior. I don't know how much he's going to get to do that in the NBA. I don't know that he's quite big enough for that, but just that he has the awareness to be more thoughtful on defense. He's good at he's been getting better at getting guys away from the lane. So particularly against Notre Dame, Jayson Tatum, my player of the week. He had a double-double. He went 8 for 14 for 19 points and 14 boards. So really nice game against Notre Dame for Jayson Tatum. Okay, we'll finish with parting shots.
Wait, I believe that was Jayson Tatum's first career double-double. And it is also worth noting he was not good the first 5, 7, maybe even 10 minutes of the game. He had several turnovers, and I was like, oh God, it's gonna be another one of those games from Tatum where you think he's just not going to get it done. And boy, was he good the final 30 minutes of that game. Wow, was he good?
No, I agree. Much improved. Okay.
So I was going to make note of Kyrie Irving making the All-Star team, but I actually remembered, I've been telling these guys, I had a big parting shot that I wanted to do. I was out in San Diego this past weekend and was able to play in a friendly match for a soccer game, for those of you not hip to the lingo, and got to play soccer on Saturday with arguably the greatest U.S. soccer player of all time, Landon Donovan. He was on my team. He passed the ball to me. I passed the ball to him. I helped. I had a couple hockey assists on a couple goals, and probably he gave me the greatest compliment I've ever heard anyone say about my soccer game. At the half, he walked up to me and said, "Dude, you played great out there." So thanks, Landon Donovan, for coming out to play and for at least 5 seconds thinking I was making me feel like I was Pele.
And I saw the photo of you and him on Facebook, and he didn't look like he's much bigger than you are.
He's not bigger than me. I mean, I probably have 100 pounds on him, and a couple inches. So, and he was, I think he was he was still in his cleats. So, yeah, he's a small dude, but he can still move. He's still active on the field.
All right, Jayson, that's a great story, Donald. Jayson, go ahead.
I'm supposed to top Landon Donovan telling Donald that he can play soccer? That's like
No,
that's
I didn't know that's what
amazing.
Donald had. If I knew that's what Donald was doing, I would have let him go last.
Yeah, I mean, how can you do this to me? You put me in a difficult position, but
I'm sorry to break it out on you.
yeah, right. My parting shot is a hearty shout out to two guys who stood next to Coach K just a couple years ago and have been beloved by Duke fans for a long time. Wojo and Chris Collins, both Marquette and Northwestern, are playing the best basketball yet under those two guys as head coaches, and there's little question. Everyone's talking about Northwestern, and they should be. I'm the guy who on the DBR board started the Northwestern thread before anyone else. I said, this is going to be the year that Northwestern does the impossible. We've talked about it on the podcast. Northwestern going to the NCAA tournament. It's never happened. I don't mean like not in a long time. I mean like never. And Chris Collins now has Northwestern beat Indiana over the weekend. Indiana, you've heard of them, right? They're a pretty well-regarded team. Northwestern has now won 6 games in a row. They're just a half game out of the Big Ten lead. They're 7-2 in the Big Ten. Now, the Big Ten's pretty mediocre, but still, 7-2 in the Big Ten's pretty good. They're 18-4 overall, and they are ranked. Northwestern is in the AP top 25 for the first time since December of 2009. And lest you think that Northwestern being ranked is something that happens often, when they were ranked for 1 week in December of 2009, it was the first time they were ranked since 1968. So the total number of weeks Northwestern has been ranked in Donald and Sam's lifetime is 2, and one of them is right now. This is a program that does not have much history, and Chris Collins has led them to 6 wins in a row, 18-4, and at the moment, everyone says they are in the NCAA tournament as a number 7 seed. So they're not even they're probably going to be favored in their first round game. It is truly amazing. And then, like I said, I wanted to also mention that Wojo and his boys at Marquette are also playing great ball. They beat Villanova over the weekend. Villanova was ranked number 1 at the time. And Marquette had a great late comeback. They were down a bit, but they came back and they beat Villanova. They are 5-4 in a very tough, very competitive Big East conference. Right now, the pundits, the bracketologists say that they're about a number 8 seed. So it looks very likely that Marquette and Northwestern are going to make the NCAA tournament. They just have to continue doing what they've been doing. And I had a great little side note from Marquette beating Villanova. Their fans rushed the floor. Of course they rushed the floor. They beat the number 1 team in the country. The Marquette fans rushed the floor, and as a result, the Big East, they have a rule against that. It's dangerous. It's not a safe thing. So they fined them $5,000. And what happens is Marquette gets to pick what they do with they have to donate the $5,000 to charity, so they donate it to a local charity. So my question is this: does this mean that fans who don't rush the floor are bad because they're denying a local, cause, a good cause, some money? Because by rushing the floor, the fans donated $5,000 to a local like boys club or something like that. I mean, Fans should always rush the floor, right?
Duke should be allowed to claim some kind of credit for all the court stormings that they've been in the middle of over the years.
Right.
But anyway, so my parting shot, I love how good Wojo and Collins are doing, and not for this podcast, but the discussion of who someday down the road replaces Coach K is getting a lot more complicated.
Yeah, and I watched the end of that Marquette game as well, and I liked at the end how Wojo saw the crowd coming down and was like, "Okay, well, time to go shake hands," because he's been on the business end of a number of court stormings in his time, so he knows what that's like. I'll finish. I just wanted to throw out a couple of very quick, simple statistics for you. January, at least for basketball purposes, is now over. Today is January 31st. Duke will not be playing any more games this month. Duke went 5-4 this month. I think the low point being that home loss against NC State. In 2015, Duke nearly went 6-3 in January and lost at home pretty big to Miami. In 2010, Duke went just 5-3 at home, and they had one especially gross loss at the end of the season at Georgetown. And that's all I will say about that. Anything else from either of you?
Nope, let's wrap it up.
Feels like it's turning around. Really does.
So for Jason Evans, for Donald Wine, I'm Sam Klein. This has been episode 69 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. Duke Band, take us home.